Well, good morning, everybody. Here's the plan for today's forecast video. After reviewing what we just saw this past week, we're going to get into what still remains a very active pattern, at least through the middle part of March, and kind of discuss what this next big system next week could look like. After that, I'm going to walk through some more of the sub-seasonal stuff that I'm concerned about, looking out there from mid-March to mid-April. And then I want to do at the very end an analysis on the model trends from the new European that was just released. So if you want to get to that long range, it's going to be these slides down here where we compare the previous run to the one we just had. I think it's going to be very informative on what some of the bigger risks going into summer could be if that model has indeed picked up on a signal. Okay, but the animation we're watching, let's go ahead and stop this just to show you something. There's our first system this is the big one. That one's finally exited the United States. It's on its way across the Atlantic and will eventually impact a lot of Europe. Following it, though, it appears that there's another just large system here. But remember, a lot of this is very high level cloud. The surface moisture has been kind of scoured out by the front that went through. So we're getting quite a bit of precipitation along this kind of, best axis for, frontogenesis here. In other words, that's where we have our best squeeze in the atmosphere, making snow into this area last night. Just got a new image there, sorry. But we're going to keep an eye on just how much, but you'll notice that to the south, there's not a whole lot of moisture with this. I'm watching very closely this feature right here, and we'll pay attention to what that does through Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, the Oklahoma panhandles, and then getting all the way down here to the southeast as well. But again, that large system that we dealt with all week has now exited, and it's kind of interesting to note, it will eventually make it to Europe. I do have all of these maps up and running. I just haven't built the HTML around them so you could see them, but here you are in Europe. They've got a deep load that's just off the coast right there. It's going to hit the Western Europe pretty hard, and it's going to slide across. And there's another one that follows, and then a third right here. So Western Europe is going to get hit pretty hard with several deep systems that are actually decaying systems that started in the Rocky Mountains, move across the open Atlantic. They are reinvigorated somewhat across the temperature gradient in the northern parts here of the Atlantic. But if you just look at this, we've got a pretty active go of it across much of Europe in the next 10 days as well, including some very strong winds. Just take a look at the expected wind gusts here. Now, these are in miles per hour, and I know they don't use that there, but I made the map, so it helps me see it a little bit easier. And we are expecting some very strong winds at times coming across parts of the British Isles and here through the Iberian Peninsula to France, even through the Mediterranean. So I just wanted to kind of show you where these systems are going to go after they've traversed across the United States and the Atlantic. But let's come back to see what this system did. We look at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. And I want to look at the places that missed out on this one first. So we just take a look here. We have a broader area in through here where overall we did not pick up much moisture. Yeah, there were some pockets in here in parts of Colorado, western Kansas, like the panhandle of Texas. You can also take note that there is a bit of a region in through here that needed this system to not be potent. We did not want to get that much moisture given how the flooding went through here in the previous weeks. But we will be filling in some of these holes. In fact, we're going to try to fill in several of them in this upcoming forecast. But keeping on this theme of what did this last system do, beginning of March 1st, this is what our 100 centimeter, and that's a profile from the top to the bottom, 0 to 100 centimeter soil moisture percentiles look like. And here's what they look like now. So let's just go back and forth. This is before, at the beginning of the new month, and this is now on the 7th. So there's been some improvements across parts of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, which was much needed. There's been some improvement even in the southeast, although the larger pockets of dryness still exist. We're going to hit these guys pretty hard with this system coming up pretty soon, though, in terms of moisture. You can see improvement in Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, Missouri as well. And we're going to watch to see how this map evolves again by the time we get into the end of next week. Now, the drought monitor is not going to reflect this. It's not designed to, but the other problem is with the cadence of these systems, this drought monitor map is made on Tuesday. We don't get to see it until Thursday. So when you look at the timing of the next system, you won't be able to include the moisture from that one into the next map either. So you see what I'm saying? That'll always be about a week behind when you go looking for this. But I want to take note of a couple of things. We need to see this next system hit this region. We need to see more moisture into Southern California, into the Southwest as well. We do see a larger, drier area here that still remains in the Southeast. There is still a problem with the pattern in terms of getting moisture into the Southern Plains. I'll show you that in a few moments, which means I think we're going to continue to see this area showing up more and more on the drought monitor as we go forward in time. But the pattern, it's there. I mean, this is This is overall a good look. This is 500 millibar flow. And so you just look at these waves, and we've got several of them right now. I mean, just when you look at kind of one half, of the hemisphere, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves. So this is a pattern that is busted up into several small short waves, and they're moving. Short waves, remember, progress through the pattern. It's the long waves that can retrograde back to the west. We've even noticed a little bit of a subtropical jet stream component around some sort of ridging in the Caribbean, which is what helps waves like this one and this one, which are the next two we're going to talk about, do better with moisture, although the first system coming through, the wave that's to the north, is missing that moisture because of the previous system. But just take a look at the 500 millibar vorticity map, okay? So what I'm watching for is each time you get a ribbon of these vorticity, kind of in these V shapes, see that? We're going to kick off a system. So by Saturday, we're watching one sneak out of the southwest into Texas, Oklahoma. It then spreads over the lower Mississippi River Valley, gets into the southeast by late on Sunday night through Monday. That's an important one to watch for down here. Then our next one comes right into California. See that? And it just keeps moving. It's not fully cut off, so it sneaks out. Again, runs across the south. Good. We need the moisture there. And then here it is. We've got a pair of waves, 1 and 2, that are coming in next Thursday, March 13th. And this is the one we're all keeping an eye on. Because, again, take a look at the isobars here. Excuse me, iso heights. I'm looking at a constant pressure map. Forgive me. That is negative tilt. And I got to see where this system kicks off its deepest low. It seems right now to go from Colorado to Minnesota. So I'm watching this kind of center of the low go right through there. And what this will do to the south is we're going to kick off more severe risk here and here. We'll watch the system pull through. And the question is, can it draw moisture back into the southern plains? That's what we're going to keep an eye on. And again, we're out there 222 hours, and I still have waves coming across the Pacific Ocean. So what does it mean? Let's just look at the first 168 of those hours, which would be the next 7 days. And, Matt talked about it yesterday, and I talked about it before. There's this thing in the West, if you've never been there, where when they're talking about their weather systems, we know that if the winter didn't meet what they need, they often count on what's called a miracle March or an amazing April. And this is miracle March type moisture for the West. We can also see a couple of stripes through this. Here's the current system. Here goes the next system, all right? And take a look at Arizona. Now, if you noticed, Arizona was in like some of the deepest drought on this map. But as I kind of focus in on the southwest, we've got some places in Arizona that have the potential of not only picking up quite a bit of snow in the mountains, but we're looking at widespread, half inch to 1.5 inches of total moisture. And this is going to be just critical for parts of the southwest United States. But take a look at what's going to be along the Sierra Nevada, coastal parts of California, even the Central Valley. Over the next 7 days, according to the WPC, is looking at 3/4 inch to an inch. It's always dependent on elevation here, though, so we can't forget that. I want to show you the southeast, too, because this was another area of drought that we've been watching. So from parts of Alabama through the northern part of Florida, southern Georgia, grabbing another 1 to 2+ inches, maybe a couple places picking up 3. This is going to be critical as well. Now, what's nice is Kentucky, you get more time to dry out. Virginia, a little bit more time to dry out. Not too much moisture coming into your area. But remember, this only goes, for a week. We're going to see this possible system starting around the 14th, 15th, 16th, ripping through this area, possibly dropping quite a bit of precipitation. Okay, on the snowfall side of it, I'm just going to show you a 7-day map. We'll take a closer look at this in a little bit. You kind of get 3 stripes, right? We got this one here, we got this one here, and this one here. And that's, I think, a really good representation of what the snowfall will look like. The Sierra Nevada is easily picking up 3, maybe 4 feet of snow out of this pattern in the next 7 days. We'll look at the 10-day maps in a moment. But there overall is an issue with this pattern, okay? And the issue that I have is right in through here. We continue to see storm systems either moving too fast, like we just saw with the previous one. This next one's turning to the north pretty quickly. And what's going on is we're not capable of drawing in a lot of very humid air that lingers in parts of the Central Plains. So I look at this and I see, this isn't a problem here just yet, but you get back into parts of Kansas, Nebraska, even though we clipped eastern Kansas with good moisture recently, much of the rest of the state, Oklahoma, Texas, continues to be on the drier side of average. But just take a look at the West. I mean, that is some fantastic look at total precipitation. And again, you saw it. We had some pockets of drought down here that need to be kind of corrected. So to see wetter conditions there is good. And we know we're in a snow drought here. We know we're in a moisture deficit here. We need to see this moisture. Montana, overall, you're drier in this pattern, but it's not zero. We have some moisture, but overall you're drier than your normal. Okay, so from there, let's get into the current all hazards weather map. We have winter storm warnings out in very narrow pockets here across the Central Plains, northern part of Nebraska. Winter weather advisories surround it. We will need to be watching for the heavy snows here, plus quite a bit more coming for the Colorado Rockies, which is needed. It's going to help the basin out. Still stronger winds in the northeast today, quite cold into parts of Georgia. As you can see, are freeze warnings and frost advisories out. And we do have a critical fire risk down here in parts of New Mexico and Texas, where we do see where we do have the red flag warnings. Okay, from there, let's just tune into some models here. Here's the NAM this morning at 6 a.m. Now remember, you've got two waves to watch. The lead wave, the much smaller one on the backside, but as one exits east, spreading some snow through Iowa, possibly getting over here to the Illinois-Wisconsin border. Our second wave is going through Arizona, bringing some of the first snow for some folks in there in a very, very long time. Playing through this afternoon and this evening. Watch the low curl up in New Mexico as one exits here as it goes over the Appalachian Mountains. That one kind of falls apart as you see. But take a look at this low hitting southeastern Colorado, the panhandles. Look at that snow. And this will be moisture you get to keep. After that goes through, I'm just kind of rocking back and forth over midday Saturday. Could be some storms out ahead of this as well. This is Saturday night, getting into Sunday morning, and that's when it spreads its heaviest rain over parts of the southeast. And that's not the first time we're going to hit this area, okay? So from there, I know that's just a quick model run, but I want to give you the bigger picture. Each one of these troughs, this is a beautiful pattern of unblocked flow. I'm just excited to see this, but this is the big dog right here that we're concerned about. Again, this is Friday the 14th. There's some ridging ahead of it. The trough has got that negative tilt to it, and this system comes through here, and I think it has the potential for really ripping off a pretty powerful system through the midsection of the country. But you note, where's the trough axis? It's going over Colorado, and then by Saturday, it's here in Minnesota. So that one's lifting very quickly. And we followed up with another trough. There it is. But there's some indications at past the midpoint of the month, right here about the 19th, that we're getting more of this type of flow, which could signal some west coast ridging. And I want to know how deep this trough is and how much cold air is in it. Okay, so just something to think about here in a few moments. But let's compare the models and kind of see how they shape up. European on the right, GFS on the left. We've seen from the high-res NAM the solution of these next two systems, which has been pretty consistent. So this is through Sunday night, getting into Monday morning. We have another cutoff low that tries to cut off, but it goes into Southern California. It stays with the flow, so it goes right over Arizona by next Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. A little clipper farther to the north here coming out of the Southern Canadian Prairie, going right across the U.S.-Canada border over the Great Lakes. And then here we are. This is Wednesday, March 12th. Look at that system coming into the West Coast. Both models have it. And we see a lead wave get through the southeast with some storms. But this is it. Friday the 14th. Deep low comes over the Colorado Rockies and ejects. Now in both models, this is impressive. They both have it coming out of Colorado going straight toward Minnesota. I'm just rocking back and forth over Friday into Saturday of next week. When this occurs, we will have to watch this corridor for opening up for severe storms. But it just doesn't bring the moisture back into the plains like we'd hoped. This could leave some very heavy snow across one of our regions that's in snow drought here to the north. We'll talk more about that in a few moments. And I'm just want to tell you, watch the Storm Prediction Center webpage over the weekend. They're already talking about it, but they've not yet issued maps for this just yet. It's just a hair beyond their 8-day time frame that they do things over. But that's the next big system we're going to watch right there. Okay, I want to show you total precipitation. I'm going to stick just with the European on this. I think it's got the best solution. So this is through Monday already. You can see the heavy rains down in the southeast. Next week, this is through Wednesday, Thursday. Now we're going to watch that big system roll through, and there it goes. So we've already seen all the precip west. We've talked about Arizona, but take a look at the southeast. When you include that last system, the one that's the 14th, 15th, and 16th, the severe weather risk goes up and also the heavy rains. We've got the models, some of them picking up on 4 to 7 inches of rain down here. But your eye's probably drawn to the holes. There's one there, we're here, and we're also in this area missing out. So if we look at precipitation probabilities over the next 10 days, this is the best chance at getting over an inch. Let's step it up to 2 inches. And again, you can see that risk of the very heavy rainfall down here. There's a 50 to 80% chance of over 2 inches. Over 4, we're primarily going to focus here on the west coast. The drier side of this, who's under a ½ inch, Kansas, eastern Colorado, much of southern Texas, Montana. Those are those pockets that we've talked about, and a little bit here along the east coast has the risk of being drier. If we look at the really dry spots, this is who has a probability of staying under a 1/10 of an inch over the next 10 days. And I imagine some of you, I was just in Kansas yesterday looking at this map going, what did we do? We're missing. The storm systems are just missing this area, all right? Okay, snow. This is the 10-day European, and I brought this up for a couple of reasons. I want you to see that last system, the 14th, 15th, and 16th, going through here and eventually tracing up toward the Hudson Bay. That could hit an area that really needs to get some snow. And the later in the season the snow comes, the more it melts and we get to keep the moisture. But I want to focus in on the west again because, as I mentioned, you look at the next 10 days, not only did the Sierra Nevada pick up 30 to 40 inches of snow, but take a look up here. As I mentioned the other day, in the mountains that feed the Columbia River, big time snow's coming. Look at what's coming into the Colorado River Basin and down here into Arizona. Man, we need this. This area is desperate for big snows. Probability-wise, here's the chance of getting 3 inches over the next 10 days. So this is now. That's that next system that comes through. And here's the one in between, right? Now, if you stay in the west coast with me, that's the chance of getting 6 inches. Here's the chance at 12. In fact, look at that. But here's the chance at 12, 18, 24. Look at that. I want to see these mountains pile up with snow right now. And the reason is, if you look at the southern Sierra Nevada or the central Sierra Nevada, they're behind. So is this whole region to the south. So these snowfall events coming in here are going to be critical. Same thing for this region, and then that next system that seems to be coming through right like that. So we'd have to just note that this map is going to be critical for moisture going forward. And I'll just make the same statement again. I need 6 more after this one. I think that is what's key to breaking some of the longer-term drought stresses. I need them all before April 6th, too. We've got to go fast through this season before many of us really have to get active with our field work and planting. Sticking in the west for just a moment, I want to show you the basin average numbers to just show you how important it is to get that moisture down here into parts of Arizona and some into New Mexico. This area is in significant deficit with overall total snow. Now, as I mentioned before, when we watch that system go through, it's got, of course, the CPC's ears perked up. And you can see that they've got a risk of heavy snow across a broader area just looking at model spread on that system on the 14th and 15th, right? That would be Friday into Saturday. So keep note of that. You can also see better snows here still in the Pacific Northwest. They're worried about, as we are, the strong winds with that system on the 14th and 15th. It's a big one, and the pressure gradient is going to be tight. And so they've got a pretty sizable area that will be under kind of risk for strong winds. And if you need just a quick analog, just go back to the previous system. It has a little different trajectory, but you saw how broad the wind field was with that previous system. And then on the heavy rain side of it, again, we're going to watch mainly from the lower Mississippi River Valley east for the heaviest rains. And I would just, my only adjustment would be to include more of this region, maybe into a higher risk of having flooding. But I don't remember what they use for their probabilities, okay? So finally, I just want to show you the week 2 maps, and there they are across the top. Very similar in timing of this next system, what they look like. Let's just zoom in on the European to get a good glimpse at it. That's what it's got for the week 2. Again, most of this coming from that system starting on the 14th, leaving on the 15th, 16th. All right, temperature-wise, we've got a discussion to have here. This is the next 7 days frost risk. So we can now start to see a broader warm sector opening here more frequently. But if I show you the daily high temperatures, this is pretty wild. Here's today's highs. Getting into tomorrow, look at the cool down here. That's what's supportive of that snow we mentioned. Where they're going to watch that low sneak all the way into the southeast. And by the way, on Sunday, I could have warmer temperatures, honestly, from Sioux Falls to Fargo than I have in pockets of the southeast. That's Sunday into Monday. Look at the warm-up right here, March 11th, 71. Wednesday, Thursday. This is all ahead of that deep low that's coming through the west, starting on Friday. It's really going to start Thursday, but getting into the west on Friday. Now, you see this temperature pattern, and you know we made mention yesterday or 2 days ago about polar vortex, is it disrupted? Yeah, I mean, look at it, it's split in half. We've got a large stratospheric warming event here. That's one of them. And the polar vortex has been pushed over to the North Atlantic. And if I show you it, this is what it looks like on the height anomaly. So that's the warming event we talked about. Now, if I play it forward, this is really a disrupted polar vortex. But polar vortex disruptions in March are different than polar vortex disruptions in December, January, February. And what I'm curious about is after we get past the 16th, does this line up with some troughing in the east? That's what I mentioned. I said if something changes, I'll let you know. It's got to be a tropospheric connection to really make this make sense. And so as I look out there, I pulled up the matrix, right? So European ensemble, GFS ensemble, artificial intelligence. Now what you're going to notice is day 5 through 10, that's the major warm-up here. That will, of course, be preceding this March 13, 14, 15, 16 storm system. And then there is the day 10 through 15. No real strong reflection of really cold east, which is where that lobe of the polar vortex sits. But I know you've already let your eyes dip to the bottom of this. The AI models picked up on something, a cold air intrusion. And this, again, would be toward the third week of the month of March. A pretty significant one. It's duration that matters, honestly. But we'll see how far into the south cold air could come. But I just take this with a grain of salt. Please do not, please do watch these maps all weekend long if you want. It's real simple. Just go to agweather.com. It looks like this when you land there. Come over to the sidebar and just click on 15-day average temperature anomalies, and it'll take you there so you can see those, all right? Okay, to finish this up, I want to show you a couple of different model runs. This is the week 3, week 4 precipitation forecast from the CFSV2. And what you take note of is that it consistently paints drier conditions here, very wet into this region, and that it gets you all the way to the beginning of April. The European model's been on board with this same look now for a long time, right? I've been showing this on repeat, and it just continues to show drier risks in this area, but very wet farther to the east you go. So we're starting to just have discussions about what it means to maybe put in a crop in very tight windows as we approach mid-April. Many of the insurance states are up, of course, by that point. Whereas we could see fewer big storm events, not zero, but fewer big storm events in the early spring months, or weeks, I should say, down here in the southwest and south. So got to keep an eye on this. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, I want to show you some trends in the models. So this is what I want to do next. We're continuing to assess and understand what these new model forecasts are showing us. But what I've got for you is last month's forecast will be on the left and the current one is on the right. But the time periods are the same. March, April, May, March, April, May. So if I take a look at this, I've seen a bit more consistent wet pattern in through here. Interesting to see the dryness expand in the southeast compared to the old model run. Okay, that's one feature that I want to take note of here. This model is also becoming quite aggressive on better moisture through the Canadian prairie, which is needed. All right, that is March, April, May. What about April, May, June? The old forecast versus the new, okay? As we take a look at the differences here, I do notice that April, May, and June, the old model had a much more expansive area of dryness here. It's still present in the new, but it's not quite as deep. It's, of course, closer to the average. But Ohio Valley, Mississippi Valley region continues to show wet for our spring months. As we then go into May, June, July, this is the old, and there is the new. Still quite consistent. I would just say some of the differences are down in the lower Mississippi River Valley and into the southeast. And then finally, this would be June, July, and August. And this is where the old model had broken this up, giving us a pretty good signal for a stronger southwest monsoon. The newer model has more consistent dryness here, but still some sort of southwestern monsoon. Now, if you think, how do you get the southwestern monsoon to go? Plant high pressure right there. Keep low pressure off the coast, and it just cranks. But every time we see big southwestern monsoon seasons, we tend to get very hot and dry in midsummer in this area. That's a consistent kind of theme with a monsoon. So I just wanted you to see the comparison and know a couple of the talking points. We're going to continue to analyze this, especially as we get the NMME forecasts in over the weekend. So here's the last thing. I want to just show you some stuff on South America. We have continued to see very large thunderstorms coming across parts of southern Argentina. You can see it in the last 7 days. Extremely active severe weather. This region has stayed drier as it has been for the last 30 days. If we slide down here and just have a look, you can look at any of these models any day you want. I'm going to come down and look at the European and show you the week 1 forecast. This is the 10-day, so much of the next 10 days are drier here. And then we notice that week 2 is trying to return moisture to these very dry areas. Now, what's my narrative been? My narrative has been that dry pattern we're still in for the next 7 to 10 days. If it lasts or returns, back at the beginning of April, that's what's going to be critical. So just take note of where the pattern is week 2. Some rain trying to return to what had been our main dry focused area. But I want to show you as my last map today, the European model March, April, May forecast. Now I believe there's some initialization bias in this because it was initialized when it was very dry here. But we could be looking at the potential return for dryness, and that could eat away maybe at the size of this safrinha crop by hitting some of these key acres with dryness at the wrong time. How much? This is probably in this inner circle 15 to 20% of their safrinha acres. The vast majority of it, of course, is in Mato Grosso. And to be a little bit drier than normal, Mato Grosso is not an issue. All right. That's what I got for you. And I've got plenty to think about over the weekend, especially as we keep stretching this subseasonal forecast out and really look hard at what these spring rains could mean. So I'll wrap it up there. Have a great weekend. We'll talk next week. Thanks.